The state's case against Hayden Berkebile alleges that he used coercion and control to get 19-year-old Grace Ann Sparks to kill herself back in September of 2019. Thousands of disturbing text messages reveal that the pair liked to engage in suicidal role play. But the defense says that that was the extent of it, and that Berkebile actually supported and encouraged Sparks throughout her depression. Maxville investigator Chase Terry took the stand to tell the jury about the crime scene when he arrived and what he did next. Take a look.
Now, direct your attention back to September 29, 2019. If you would give the members of the jury a summary of that day and how it started and what caused you to go to any particular address.
Patrol responded to the scene. Shortly thereafter, they requested major crimes respond. Myself and my partners, we traveled to the West Knoxville address. Also responding with us would have been our crime lab techs, followed up by investigators from the forensic center. There we found Ms. Sparks deceased in a bedroom. Her father was on the scene. I spoke with the father. He told me that he heard a pop, but they have cats at the apartment. He thought it was the cats knocking something over again, as he said they often did. Ms. Sparks was found in her bedroom. At that time, she was on her back. She still had the pads on her where life-saving measures were attempted. There at the scene was the revolver that lay between her legs, and at that point it looked like a single self-inflicted gunshot wound that she sustained. We processed that scene. There, just in front of Ms. Sparks, was her phone propped up on a pillow in a snack cake box. We knew that the last person that she had been in contact with was the person who had called in to 911 to report what he said he thought was a suicide.
Were you able to determine who that person was and make that call, sir?
Yes.
And who was that?
Mr. Hayden Berkebile.
Is he present in the courtroom today?
He is.
If you point him up for the members of the jury, please. If the record reflects the identified Hayden Berkebile. Very well. And that particular address was responded to, was that 603 Waybridge?
Yes, it was.
And do you recall the apartment number specifically?
I believe 101.
And you established that the 911 call was important to your investigation. Is that a fair statement?
No, absolutely.
And what about that call was important to you as an investigator investigating the death in this case?
Well, at that point, that allowed me to know who the last person she was actually in contact with. So that was a key point.
Okay, and you identified that individual as being Hayden Berkebile?
Correct.
Okay. And bringing direct your attention back to the crime scene, you mentioned the phone. Did you also search the remainder or document the remainder of the residence?
Yes. There was a safe there that was open that contained several other firearms. We collected those firearms, placed those into safekeeping as well as the victim's phone and a few other items that were there in the bedroom.
Okay. And based on your investigation, did you determine who those firearms belonged to?
Yes.
And whose firearms were those?
They were the victim's boyfriend, who was away stationed in Poland at the time, Mr. Landreth.
Okay. Is he in the military?
Yes, he is.
And do you recall what outfit or what department of the military he was in?
I believe Army National Guard.
Investigator Terry, I'm going to rephrase that question. Was there anything about that particular 911 call that caused you concern?
Yes. During the course of embarking upon during the course of my investigation, while listening to the 911 tape, the discrepancy between the time that the communication ended, and the time that the 911 call came out, there was a time gap there, as well as the 911 call processor asked Mr. Berkebile how long they had been communicating, and he said 6 minutes. During the course of my investigation, it was obvious that they had been communicating far longer than 6 minutes, and asked him as well, when did this happen? And he said, dude, like 2 minutes ago. Those two weren't in line with what I learned during the course of the investigation.
And do you recall how much time it elapsed between the last Facebook communication and the placing of the 911 call?
I believe probably almost 15 minutes, I believe.
Was there anything mentioned about a revolver that caused you concern?
Yes. Mr. Berkebile said, I think she had a revolver. And during the course of the investigation, it was quite obvious that he knew she had a revolver. So that was off-putting at the least.
And was there anything that caused you concern about whether or not Mr. Berkebile informed the victim not to do it?
Yes. While investigating this, it was quite obvious he was instructing her to do it.
No, I'm going to sustain the objection. The messages speak for themselves, and I think that's more of an argument that you can say for later. I don't think it helps us for him to say.
Sure.
Now, you can ask him after reviewing those messages, what did that lead you to do? Might be a better question.
Understood. So we talked about the 911 call. Moving on to the Facebook messages, I want to talk about generally how you went about obtaining those records.
We were able to take the victim's laptop to our ICAC unit, where that's what they do, download data from cellular devices from laptops. So we were able to get into the victim's Facebook records and download the conversations between she and Mr. Berkebile.
After downloading those, did you have cause to review them?
I did.
And are they the same messages that you viewed for the last 2 days?
They are.
Is there anything that's changed about them from when you originally viewed them as to when this jury has reviewed them?
No.
Except for the redactions.
Oh, yes.
Minus the redactions.
Yes.
We're referring to the black boxes. Those were added by the DA's office. I think we've addressed that already. I just didn't want you to beat us.
Okay. Now, next, I want to fast forward to February 13th, 2020. That's several months down the road, sir. Did you have cause to travel to Bloomington, Indiana?
I did.
And if you would, describe to the members of the jury why you traveled to Bloomington.
Prior to going to Bloomington, our investigation led us to believe that this was just not a simple suicide. Conferred with the DA's office. The case went before the grand jury. A true bill was returned. And so I left with another investigator, Tony Delala, en route to Bloomington, Illinois, with the charging documents. I coordinated with Indiana Police Department, and they were of great assistance. They aided us in taking Mr. Berkebile into custody as he was pulling into the parking lot of the strip club where he was employed. From that point, he was transported to the Bloomington Police Department. A search warrant was also executed on his residence where electronics items were taken and stored there in Bloomington. At the police department, I interviewed Mr. Berkebile There's the police department.
Investigator, I don't want to cut you off, but I kind of slow you down just a little bit. Let's focus on the arrest here. Did you coordinate with the Bloomington Police Department to actually take Mr. Berkebile into custody?
I did.
And at that point, did you have an arresting instrument in your possession to do so?
We did.
All right, that's the lead investigator talking about first being sent out to the scene and then starting to connect the dots. And one of the big problems that he thought was an issue out of the gate was the time that Berkebile first claimed was 2 minutes between the time that she took her life and he called 911, and the reality was about 15 minutes. Big difference. Still with us, law professor at the University of Georgia and former prosecutor Melissa Redmond. Melissa, that time gap does give jurors a different look at the potential thoughts of the defendant, because if you're on this chat, this video chat, and your friend shoots and kills themselves and you're shocked by that, thinking there's no way this could have happened, 911 is more like 2 minutes, not 15. It's that consciousness of guilt where you're freaking out. Oh my gosh, what have I done? That's big, is it not? That's just the timing.
Yeah, that timing, absolutely. I was thinking the same thing, consciousness of guilt. If you've done something or you think you've contributed to this act, you've done something wrong, then 15 minutes sounds a lot more like trying to get your story straight than 2 minutes and what just happened, let me call 911. And I suspect that's something that the state is gonna make a big deal about in closing arguments, that 15-minute, what was he doing in this 15 minutes? Because he saw exactly through the video what happened. They've had this long conversation about her actually doing this. So if he was surprised by what happened, if he didn't want her to die, then it seems like his immediate next step would have been to call 911.
Yeah, and the shock that, depending on where his head was, either he was completely taken aback by what happened, or he knew right before he commanded her to do it that that was going to happen. Either way, you would think that the 15 minutes is a big part of the equation, and the lying about it. As soon as you start telling lies to investigators, it doesn't look good on the back end, because what's the point of lying unless you have something to hide? For the defense, they did have an objection there when the investigator sort of opined about it, the significance. But overall, they've sort of let this fly and go. Your thoughts on what they could have done? And do you think that the defendant should testify in a case like this to give some context? Because right now, boy, he seems creepy.
Yeah, it does seem very creepy. I think it depends on how he will testify, and I'm sure, he and his counsel have gone through, you anticipate if you were to testify, how would this go, and kind of walk him through both the direct, and you want to cross-examine your client to see how they will respond on the stand. If he comes across just as creepy as these text messages and these Facebook communications seem, then of course at all costs you want to keep him off the stand. But if he can explain the nature of their relationship, kind of explain away the power dynamic given the age difference, to explain how people who may not be familiar with how these BDSM relationships work, being the dominant person versus the submissive, what the rules are, if there are rules, that they followed the rules, and that's why he didn't anticipate this actually happening. If he can explain all of that, then by all means, maybe you should try. But I think his defense is banking on the fact that the state won't be able to meet their burden of connecting his actions, or his words, rather than his actions, his words, to her actually pulling the trigger. So I would be surprised actually if he testifies, because there's so much he has to explain, as opposed to whether or not the state can prove that burden in such a novel case that by his words he caused this death to occur.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this played out a couple weeks ago, so we know the answers to this question, and I don't want to be the spoiler if people are watching, he doesn't take the stand. Okay.